Marko Babac was living a typical, or maybe slightly super typical, urban life in Las Vegas and decided needed to get out of the hustle bustle. So he moved to Florida, lived on the beach. Wife had a great job, and then COVID happened and lockdowns happened and everything went to hell. And so he bought some land in Arkansas. That was a little over 3 years ago. Next thing you knew, he was a rancher. Now he sells beef around the world. Yeah, a guy who never did it is doing it. Pretty cool, pretty inspirational, great conversation, great guy. You're going to enjoy this one.
He was a morbidly obese surgeon destined for an operating table and an early death. Now he's a rebel MD who is fabulously fit and fighting to make America healthy again. This is Stay Off My Operating Table with Dr. Philip Ovadia.
Welcome, everybody. It's the Stay Off My Operating Table podcast with Dr. Philip Ovadia. And today we're talking to someone who's in, I'm trying to think of an industry that I like better than this guy's industry. I can't think of one, Phil.
I don't think I still haven't found it. And I think I've said it before on the show. I hope to do what Marko does when I grow up one day. I'm really excited to have Marko Babac on the show with us. Marko has really just established, we're going to hear about Independence Ark Farm, where he ranches beef as well as other great real whole foods. And I'm really excited to kind of hear his story and talk about his take on our food supply. And I'm sure there's a couple of other interesting topics we're going to go into. With that, Marko, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience, give a little bit of your backstory.
Yeah, I'm Marko Babac. I am the founder of Independence Ark Ranch, and I come from Europe, from Croatia. As most of you can tell, I have an accent, so I'm not your typical Arkansas guy out here. I also played a lot of tennis. I have a tennis business as well, where I contract out with different facilities. I have other coaches doing programs. So I'm very active in sports, and now with food, especially with beef and everything we do with our turkeys and chickens. We process our own chickens and turkeys here that I all learned as it goes. Before all that madness happened with COVID and everything, I decided to get away from the city lifestyle. Also a city guy. I'm not a country guy at all. It's not just that I'm from Europe. There is a lot of Europeans that live on a farm and all that. I really lived in the city my whole life. And this was just all new. I was just kind of like really wanted to get away from congested areas, from a lot of people. I wanted to build an ark. That's why I called it Independence Ark, not because it's an ark of safety, and independence comes in from Independence County, as other people would say. What is Independence Ark? It's just the county that we're in, and it really fit in with the ark of safety that I wanted to do. And I really wanted to grow the food for ourselves, just to have and learn with a couple of cattle to start with, chickens and all that. And it turned out to be a nationwide and now a little bit international. We started to ship to Canada as well. And it wasn't like this was not planned. I just wanted to do something for us. And then we had so many family friends that would come over, have burgers or whatever, pot roast, any kind of beef or chicken meals. And they would just be so impressed, and the way the meat looks and all that. And I said, maybe we can do something else with it, because I ended up having more cows. And then all of a sudden it turned into one by one, it turned out to scaled out to be a pretty big operation right now as we speak. Mentioning back to what Dr. Philip Ovadia said earlier, yeah, you can actually become what I am. Everybody, I advise, I would tell everyone to try to farm, whether it's just a garden in the back or whatever it takes. I know I can't be a heart surgeon. That's impossible. But I know the doctor can become a farmer, because I did. So there is a big difference here. I can't be a heart surgeon, but I know that you and Jack can both become farmers. And I really hope a lot of people do that. So that's a little bit in a nutshell. There is a lot more in between here, and I'll leave it up to questions as you guys go along.
Yeah, I'd say there's a lot more. Let's start with, how'd you end up in Arkansas?
That one, a great question again. So we were in Florida at the time. We moved from Las Vegas. So you can't be any more extreme. Going from the desert to the beach. We were lived right on the beach of Reddington Shores, Reddington Beach, close to St. Petersburg, right? And all this madness happened with the lockdowns and all that. And I lived through socialism slash communism back in the day. We had hyperinflation, civil war. So I kind of saw the writing on the wall before COVID madness even happened. And I've been telling my wife that we need to make an exit out of congested areas. I do not want to be around where I have to depend on someone else to provide necessities for me. I wanted to see if I can become self-sufficient, but it was a little scary because I didn't know much about it. That's for sure.
Wow.
So this is where we just said, you know what? My wife made a move with me, of course, and the whole family, because she got her MBA in Las Vegas for business executive, what is it called? EMBA, Executive Master's Business Associate degree. She got a position that she could not say no. It was a no-brainer, right on the beach, big money. I didn't even have to do my tennis stuff in Las Vegas. It was just like, hey, we're going to go live our dream life right on the beach of Florida. It was beautiful for kids, for us and all that. And all of a sudden, her job was, she was basically laid off, including 225 employees that she was managing.
Wow.
So we were stuck in Florida with major overhead. I mean, we were right on the beach. We're talking big money, and we couldn't even use the beach. A lot of people don't know in Florida what really happened for first several months. Of course, it wasn't like California and any of that, but it was pretty rough. I mean, they had yellow taped access to the beach and all that. And I said, I'm paying all this money here, and now she didn't have a job. I said, you basically have, I told my wife, 24 hours to find a place we can still prove that we have income coming in from you, because I'll figure it out. Because for me, it's no big deal. You can pick me up and just drop me anywhere and I'll find my way around. I'm used to that. And she was looking, okay, how about Texas? So we looked at one property in Texas, and it didn't have much pasture land. It was more like woods and all that. It was nice, but I said, we need some grass. We need, she wanted to have a horse. I wanted some cattle, of course. And we were just kind of going with whatever it leads us, kind of like a leap of faith. That's what it was. And yes. And Arkansas came up. I said, Arkansas, I've never been to Arkansas in my life. Okay. Never in my life. I never even drove through Arkansas. So we found this property that has 40 acres and a house that was about 1700 square feet. So nothing big, like our house in Vegas was 4,800 square feet. But I had 40 acres of land.
Yeah.
And it was productive. It was pasture land, right? So, and the house was built in the mid-90s. It looked turnkey ready. Everything was cheap through all that madness that was going on. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to jump on this. We made an offer sight unseen. And I asked the real estate agent, can you give me 24 hours if I physically go there and see it? Because, on pictures, it can look a lot different.
Oh, yeah.
It can be distinct. And we showed up, dropped the kids off at the in-laws and showed up. And I loved the place. I mean, I basically have no neighbors. I can do whatever I want. There is no HOA. I'm building tennis court now as we speak, clay court, Olympic size, right outside the front door. I mean, it just kind of all fit in, as I'm sure people will say, you probably had millions of dollars or something to make this happen. No, I had some savings for about 4 to 6 months for basically like a median income. And I knew I can do some stuff from home, working some cheaper jobs just to kind of get going. And all of a sudden, Independence Ark was born from there. I mean, it is just a really crazy story. There is a lot more to it, but I don't want to spend a whole hour talking about that.
I do.
Yeah, I love it. So, you buy these 40 acres. Was it already, being farmed or ranched, or you really had to kind of start the whole operation?
I just hired I brought some cash, actual cash with me. I said, maybe I can get a deal from some local handyman. I found some really amazing veterans that like to get some extra work for cash. So I just said, you know what? I needed a fence. I had one part of the fence done, and I just wanted to get the fenced off about maybe 10 or 12 acres and start with just few cows on that side and figure out how do I do rotational grazing. And my wife is all about reading books and all that, so she was doing all the research when it comes to that. And I'm the one that makes all the crazy decisions like I did to make her, say yes, to make a move from the beach of Florida to in the middle of the woods in Arkansas. That's just one of them. We did a lot of research on that. We fenced it off with those guys. So it was not farmland. We did just a little garden in the back. We were mostly just, hey, it's pasture land. These cows and horses are just grazing all day long. I'm watching them out the window, and I just had to fence it off. I already had a barn that was not fully set. There was another project that it was not a barn. It was more like the RV parking in the country style with a little metal roof.
Yeah.
It had just structure, and we just added stalls in case I needed that. So there was another project, and we were able to complete that. And all of a sudden I had cows and horses, and we were just ready to go. But like I said, there was not a plan to go nationwide and international meat farm to table business. It just kind of happened, and now I'm enjoying it. I can't believe I'm actually talking to you guys about selling beef. I mean, I've been a tennis guy my whole life. I have nothing to do with any of that. I just learned as I go, and I was fortunate enough to find some real men out here, real cowboys, real ranchers. I learned all the tricks and trades pretty quickly because I just was really listening a lot. I wasn't trying to act smart. I just wanted to learn. I got to meet one of the best processors, I think, out there, because we just love the way they process the meat. It's a USDA facility, only 40 minutes from me. So that was a big deal because I can't just go and butcher my own cow. I'm not a USDA facility. So for chickens, it's different. We don't sell those. We just do it. We just have it for ourselves and our family. But yeah, for cows, that was a big deal. So it kind of all fell into place. And like I said, here I am talking to you guys about steaks, about beef, and about being self-sufficient.
Yeah, that's a great story. Yeah, tell us. I really, because we've had one or two ranchers on, but they were sort of multi-generation and career. You're the first, I guess I'm going to call it, new blood rancher that we've had on.
Yes.
You buy the property, you build a fence, and now you have to get some cattle. Talk to us about buying your first cattle.
Oh, I think this is beyond hilarious. So it's not easy to buy cattle. You got to know these guys, okay? You can't go on Facebook because you're immediately labeled as some kind of, conspiracy theorist, or who knows what you're labeled as if you're talking about beef, unless you're talking about, something different like being vegetarian, then it's no problem. But if you're looking to buy a cow, actual cow, it's very hard to go through all these loopholes to find, someone. And people kind of got to hide and give you the number in your direct message. Hey, I got a cow for sale. It's not as easy as people think. So we found this guy that was about 3 hours away. I think it was Scranton, Arkansas. Maybe one of your listeners may be familiar where it's at. Just a small town, kind of where I'm at, very small town. And we agreed on, I said I needed 2 cows, right? And I had a hard time understanding him because he's got a really thick Arkansas country accent. And here is me, European in Arkansas, the only one probably in the radius of, I don't know how big Arkansas is exactly, how many miles, but I haven't seen one yet. So like me, I know that he was trying to figure out what was I saying as well, but we somehow made a deal that he comes over with cows at my property from whatever, Scranton, Arkansas, right? So he comes in, he must have been 85 years old, but rough looking 85 years old, okay? Like country rancher looking, total cowboy. He's sitting in his, beat up truck. He's got plenty of cows in the trailer. So this was his driver, right? Not the guy I talked to. So I said, hey, I just wanted 2 cows, not 9 or 10, whatever you got in the back. And he said, just pick whichever one you like. I'm like, this is great. I don't know much about cows, but if I see a cow looking like this, I'm not going to buy that one. I'm going to buy a hefty looking cow. They were all about 8 months, 6 months old. So they were already weaned off. Basically, they did not need to nurse, none of that. They were ready to go for the pasture. And I told the driver, I said, I need 20 and 21, let's say the numbers. I forget which numbers they were because they had like numbers on the ear tag. And he says, go get them. I said, what do you mean go get them? How do I get two cows out of the trailer? And I even had one of the Arkansas guys that played offensive line. I mean, he's a hefty Arkansas Razorback, strong Army infantry. Like he can squish you, I think, with his left hand, and he's right-handed. I mean, he's a strong guy. And he says, I'll just grab one. I said, what do you mean you're just going to grab one? So he went on in there to try to get these cows out, and nothing worked. You know, they're doing the herd mentality. They stick their heads together against the trailer, and they're not moving. So I go to the driver and I said, okay, so can you help me out, man? I got to get these. I'm ready. Here's the cash. I want these two cows. He says, I can't help you. I'm 85 years old. I can't even get out of the truck. So I called the owner, the main guy, I guess. And of course, he was playing games and sending me 9 cows instead of 2, hoping I buy all 9. I mean, I get that part. But I said, okay, listen, I'll buy all 9. It's fine as long as they all come out, but you need to give me a deal. And he says, no, this is the price. This is what I can do. I said, unfortunately, there is nothing I can do there. If you can give me all 9 for this price, I'll buy them. So he said he couldn't do it. We were about to leave, and then 2 minutes later, he calls the driver back and says, fine, let him have them all. I said, how do I get all of them out again? He says, just bang on the trailer from one side with 2 of you, and they're all going to run out together. And that's exactly what happened. We had a little stick, not to herd the cattle, just like a little tiny stick to kind of stick on the side. And they all came out. Now I have 9 cows. And I looked at my wife, and she's as a city girl as they come, trust me. And she looks at me. I said, now what? It was kind of like a Finding Nemo movie when they escaped at the end. And they said, now what? You know, like I got 9 cows. And that's how the whole story happened, how it turned out to be not just food for us. It turned out to be those 9 cows, as soon as they got up to about 26 months or so, 27 months, they were going into the processor, and we sold them pretty quickly. I mean, this is where people really wanted to, support smaller farm businesses, stuff like that. It was just family, friends. They buy, 200 pounds of meat. There goes basically your cow. 250 pounds of meat. It was just gone. I said, I like this. This was pretty good. So I ordered more, and it turned into what it is now, thousands and thousands of orders across the country and Canada.
Okay, so you went from I'm in the tennis business and my wife has an executive MBA to
Correct.
a rancher in
yes, with no
basically in what, less than 5 years?
We've been here 3 years now. We got here in September of
years.
2020. Yes. Yes.
Oh my Lord.
I know. They say it's hard to believe this story, but when I told my friends what I did, they could not believe. They said, where are you? Because I lived in Las Vegas. I mean, I also played poker full time in between, or part time, I should say, between tennis and all that. So I was basically living on Las Vegas Strip. It has nothing to do with cows and ranchers. It was completely, as you guys know, different lifestyle. And I told them, you're going to be wishing you did what I did in 3 or 4 years, because I see where our country is going. I see the writing on the wall with what's going on. And I don't want to get political on your show because I'm a political atheist. I don't trust anyone in office, not one person, by the way. I'm not an atheist. I'm a political atheist. I just don't believe in anyone. I don't think they are out there for my own good, for your own good, for anybody's. They're just out there to get the votes. And I did not want to rely on them, whether it's Republican, Democrat, I don't care. I just want to be on my own and move on from there.
We're going to get a lot of crossover listeners here from the health space into the, I don't even know what to call it, but this is amazing. I have often thought, I should buy a piece of property and I should have my own cows. And then I thought, who am I kidding? I can barely nail 2 pieces of wood together. And
yeah, I can't either. I'm not a handyman by any means. You just learn as you go. It's crazy how it works out. You just learn as you go. And yeah, that's why I mentioned earlier, I can't become heart surgeon and eye doctor. I am 46 years old. I have no interest of becoming one. And if I wanted, I can't. But I know both of you guys and every single person listening, can do what I'm doing. And I always tell, yes, you can buy meat from me or any other ranch out there, a farm to table business, but you got to do it. Number one, you do it yourself because the major corporations have a stronghold on everything. Farmers are being squeezed out constantly. And it is sad to watch how quickly they destroyed so many hardworking people around where I live. They don't do farm to table because this really takes a lot of moving parts from shipping to marketing. It is, and you got to spend some money. You got to make some moves. You have to do some promos. You got to do giveaways. You got to be out there. You have to have a social media presence. Most of these guys don't want to deal with that. They're selling pennies on the dollar because big corporations, and I don't want to name them here because these people are basically vicious and they will shut down your channel. They will shut down my farm. This is where we are in United States. You have to watch what you're saying. You have to, we are all at the mercy of these big corporations. So they are guaranteeing these ranchers, let's say they have a 2,000 head of cattle, right? And they're saying, we're going to for sure buy it from you. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to advertise it. You don't have to do anything. This is how much we pay you. And they get, like I said, pennies on the dollar. They can't sustain it. They're taking those cows, and the prices are being raised at the stores, as you guys can see when you go to the store, what a pound of ribeye is or ground beef or whatever. But ranchers are not doing it. They're not making it. So that's why I decided to do farm to table, even though I knew it was going to be way harder. I said, it's just a challenge. I want to give it a shot and see where we can go instead of selling my cattle to these blood-sucking, vicious companies that want to destroy, not me, everyone out there that's not in the 1%.
Yeah, I mean, this certainly goes along with, one of our themes here, which is, we talk about taking control of your health, and it's really taking control of everything in your life. And the food that you're eating is a perfect example of that. Now, so I'm going to interject a little bit, your kind of maybe health aspect of this and your dietary preferences. And I know from sort of following you now on social media, you're pretty much a carnivore. Did that happen before or after you started raising cattle?
It happened actually in January with the World Carnivore Month. I was able to interact with so many carnivore folks on Twitter, whatever, X. And everybody was talking about, I said, I have, I'm not going to say unlimited amounts of beef, but I have a lot of beef. Why would I not try? And I did it. I did it for the month of January. Right now, I think I'm more keto. I don't mind a little bit of a mix of, let's say, avocado or whatever it is. But I'm about 70 to 80% carnivore. I love it. I do eat a lot of chicken that I process here. It tastes completely different than the chicken at the store. Just like a grass-fed and finished beef tastes different. It takes a lot more time to prepare. It's not for everyone. You might have to do sous vide like you're doing, Jack. A lot of dry brining, marination. It's not all this marbling that you get from grain-fed cows that you can just slap on the grill. And you say, why would I not want to do that? It's because grass-fed does have a lot more minerals. It is, cows are supposed to graze. That's just the way the nature is. And there is a lot more iodine in grass-fed beef. Yes, it's going to be a little tougher if you don't make it right, especially certain steaks like New York strip. If you're looking at New York strip, you might want to go grain-fed because New York strip, you should be using fajita meat for that when it comes to grain-fed because it barely has any fat on it. It's just going to be pure meat. And it's going to be dark color, not much marbling, and the fat is going to be just a little bit on the side. It's almost like filet, but it's not going to be so tender like grass-fed filet. So these are the little things that people need to learn because you got to look at it. What are the benefits? Are you going to eat really healthy meat that the cow was raised and finished, meaning taken to the processor from grass versus finished on corn or grain? So those are the differences. And you can see in the color, it's more like burgundy color when it comes to grass-fed. You don't see that bright red, and the fat has got a little more yellow tone to it. versus white plastic almost looking
Yeah.
fat that you see at the store. It's a very thick, white as white can be, and you can just tell that's just grain fed. I'm not saying that's not healthy for you, but they do a lot of weird stuff with gas to make cuts look more appealing, very bright red. I would really be careful with that because I just don't know what's true, what's not true, what they're doing. So for those that are not sure when it comes to grain fed, you have to do a lot more work to prepare your food in order for it to taste better. Ground beef is no problem. That's just going to be easy. It's going to be delicious. But like I said, every other cut, you're going to have to do a little more work to it to make it taste really good. So it's up to people if they want to save some time, or they look more into nutrition, what's in their meat,
I never
just to
knew
kind of
that.
give some idea on that.
I never, we've talked, like Phil said, we've talked to a couple of ranchers and they probably said it. I know for myself, these things take a while to sink in. But you just kind of gave us a quick little rule of thumb there.
Just a couple of examples because we've had thousands and thousands of customers that love it, and you got a few that just it's not for them. They said, "Listen, I don't even know the difference between the T-bone and the ribeye. I don't. I just want to. I say, you know what? Grass-fed beef is just not for you. You really have to be in your kitchen and maybe you're working from home and you have flexibility of time to dry brine these. Like you get these carnivore communities. I mean, the passion and the time they take to make that pot roast, for instance, it is not just put it in a crock pot, undercook it, overcook it, and then say later, oh, it was okay or whatever. They really take time to make that and appreciate because you can just see the way the meat looks. So it's a little more work on it. But considering something with health, going back to what doctor was asking earlier, my mom was recently diagnosed with what is it called? Stage one, or I don't know if it's stage one or what is it? Stage one cancer? Is that what you say was the beginning stage?
Yeah.
It was a breast stage one cancer, right? It was not a fast spreading. I understand everybody's bodies are different. Every cancer is different. I get all that, right? So this is, of course, not medical advice or anything, but this was just recently. And for 2 months before she didn't do any chemo, by the way, any of that. We just went strictly on meat diet for her. I was providing meat. She did eat some spinach and olive oil with garlic and a lot of eggs, a lot of chicken from my farm, and a lot of grass-fed beef that I was providing. The oncologist that she saw, that she said that's what she was doing, he said, so you are on no sugar and no protein diet? And she said, yes. He kind of downplayed the no sugar part pretty quickly. And my mom was a little bit upset my wife was with her there asking all the questions. And my wife can ask questions, trust me. I mean, it would make you stop like this with all the annoying good questions that she would come up with. And the doctor really just downplayed it. And then 2 months later, we see him and the tumor shrunk from 5 centimeters to 2 without anything. Okay. They were able to make the operation a lot easier. They didn't have to cut much out at all. They just went microscopically underneath, scooped it all out. Basically, she was cancer-free within 2 months. We just starved the cancer by being on no sugar, protein, grass-fed beef, organic chicken. I should say natural, because you can't say organic because that's what the big corporations weaponized. They have the organic rights. So I'll just call it natural. I like natural better anyways. And because they're free range and eat bugs, instead of me eating bugs, I let my chickens eat bugs, and then I eat their eggs or I eat the chickens if I have to. Not egg layers, but the meat birds. And that's kind of like the breaking news, I think, for this interview is my mom being cancer-free in 2 months, not eating carbs and sugar. I mean, she went cold turkey. She's 100% no, not even a sip of OJ, nothing. I mean, no sugar at all. And the cancer shrunk. And I don't know if doctor or you, Jack, have heard any of stories like this, but this was amazing to me because it happened to us, like I know from personal experience.
Have we heard anything like that,
Yeah.
Phil?
We've had Thomas Seyfried on, and we've had a few others. I'll put a little plug in for Grace Price. Her documentary is now out on the relationship between what we eat and cancer, definitely. But love to hear it every time I hear it. What are, I guess, and I know this could probably turn into multiple podcasts, but give us a few like top most surprising things that you've learned about, doing this, about, raising cattle and getting them to market and being able to, sell and then distribute them.
First, I was shocked the way the meat looked. When I went for the first time, it was the first cow we brought in, which was not easy. You raise these animals and you take them in, it's not easy. Okay. And after a while, you just understand this is food. It is not your pet. This is what it is. And at the beginning, that was the first thing I learned, was like my wife was literally outside like sobbing when I had to take the first cow in. She even named her. I said, stop naming cows.
Do not name
please.
the cows.
Don't. That's number one. That's number one rule. You just have to understand that this is food. It is not, it's livestock. It is not your pet. And then when I went in and I came home and I picked, and when I waited for the meat to thaw out, and I looked at it and I said, and the smell of freshness and the way it looked, I said, I've never seen anything like it. Okay. That was the first moment that I realized this is different. So I said, okay, maybe the taste is going to be really bad or something, because this looks too good to be true. So I made the first hamburger out of the ground beef, and I was just, stunned in a way how juicy and how awesome it was. Like with steaks, I've had a few like New York strip, like I said, and even ribeye, because it's not grain, corn fed, doesn't have much marble, and you really got to do more with dry brining and all that. So I had trials and errors with those. But when it comes to everything else, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then when it comes to eggs, this is the biggest one, even bigger than the way the meat looked and all that. It was the orange color on the egg that I've never noticed at the store. Was always kind of like runny, sick looking eggs, even if I would buy whatever they say organic. Yeah. And I said, why is it so orange? And it tastes so good. You can just tell that you're eating something healthy. I can just tell when I eat it that my body is absorbing it. What is the word I'm using? It's taking it so naturally. I'm just eating it just like when eating grass-fed beef. You don't feel heavy when you're done eating. Okay, like I had steaks at the 5-star restaurants that are grain-fed and all that. They'll be delicious, marbling, but I feel really good. I eat a steak, you always feel, honestly, almost like an animal. You feel really strong and good, but I felt like it was a little heavy. With grass-fed, I just go and eat. I can eat a steak and a hamburger and a couple of eggs next to it, and I never felt heavy. I never felt like I ate a brick. It just feels like it's a part of you, and you're good to go. And that was the biggest learning curve when it comes to that. But everything else, the process of taking the cow in, figuring out the processor, there is so many things that can go wrong. So it is, for someone who's never done it, you got a cow that possibly is born on your calf that's born on your property. So millions of things can go wrong there. Number one, they survive. There is big blizzard coming in. Somehow they survive, miracle. Then they got to be weaned off. Then you have to figure out all the hay issues when the grass is completely frozen. They can't graze. So if I'm not feeding them grain or corn, I have to have a good access to hay, local hay, because if hay is bad, your cow it's just not going to be good. You got to have a really natural, good hay. So you have to have all those pieces in place. Then you got to get the cow to get in the trailer. Then you got to get the trailer with the pickup truck. You have to figure that out. You got to take them to the processor. Then you have to pick it from the processor. Then from there, it comes down to, is it vacuum sealed? What if they didn't do a good job with that? What if the ground beef looks like 80-20, but it's really not 80-20 because they were rushing? It looks more fatty. People will complain. Again, millions of things that can go wrong there. And then on top of that is packing, getting the right packages, the insulation on the box to make sure that you are safe when you're sending them out. Then you got to rely on UPS not to mess up. And then on top of that, like I said, the whole advertising, marketing, and shipping itself. So we have a contract now with UPS. They come in Mondays and Tuesdays and they pick up, hundreds of boxes. We have them set up, ready to go. They come in at the end of the day, and I help them load it up if I'm home inside the UPS truck, and they take it from our ranch straight to the shipping facility. So many moving parts that can go wrong with bad weather or droughts. So you got the summer droughts that you got to deal with, water security and all that. And then, of course, bad storms, which out here we don't get too much. It's about a week or two throughout the winter where you literally cannot even walk outside. It's ice everywhere. It's about 0 degrees, but it's only 2 weeks, so it's not terrible. There is a lot of moving parts, like I said, that you got to figure out, and a lot of things that can go wrong when it comes to this. Like I said, you can learn it. It is not as complicated as I made it sound, because if you have certain things that can go wrong, then everything goes wrong. But if it runs smooth, for the most part, it does. It's not that big of a deal once you learn the system. That's what I'm trying to say. But if something goes wrong, everything goes wrong. If that cow doesn't make it, or the processor doesn't do a good job, etc.
Well, yeah, kind of like everything else in life that is
Exactly.
dependent.
It's just
Okay, but I got to understand this. Now, I've been buying my beef from a local-ish rancher for the last couple of years, and they only deliver, they actually, I mean, they literally deliver here in town, but they only deliver 4 times a year, and I understand that's due to when they're harvesting the cattle. So you're shipping every week. How much? Walk us through the process there of you harvest a cow when it's either a certain weight or a certain age, I'm guessing, which
we want to be, yes, we want to be under 30 months. If you're doing the USDA process, if you're doing everything the right way, because the backbone, a lot of times the cow can have cancer, all kinds of diseases. So you can't even get the steaks with bones. You won't even get your porterhouses. You will not get ribeyes with the bone. And you would lose a lot on weight when you're selling, even though the customers could appreciate that because they get more actual meat. But some people, like myself, I like the bone, especially on sirloin steak, which is my favorite grass-fed cut, sirloin steak, which is so underrated. I like it next to the bone. It's my favorite, right? So we're going in under 30 months. I keep them for about a year and a half. I get them when they're 6 months old. I also have access to the local auction, which is right next to us, like literally 5 minutes away, with all the local farms bring their cattle from the pasture. If I needed additional cattle, which is called Charlotte, Arkansas Livestock Exchange, I can go there. I can buy them when they're a year old. I can buy them when they're 6 months old. They disclose everything when it comes to, they call them all natural, meaning no vaccinations, all of that. And this is, like I said, only you can do stuff like this in small towns when everybody knows everyone. Like, for instance, if you buy a bull at that auction and this bull is not good, meaning it cannot produce good calves, something is wrong with him overall. And you need to fill out paperwork, and they actually go to the processor to make sure that this bull, if you tell them, is just going straight to the slaughterhouse, they would go there with you to make sure, not with you, but with the processor, to make sure that this bull was brought in. Why? Because you don't want some cattle that are really small, weak, sick, because the bull was not healthy enough, not being able to produce good cattle. So everyone knows Independence Ark has this type of cattle. They got Black Angus. Jack down the street has this one. Philip down the street has this one. And it's all small community that everybody works together. And I just fell into it perfectly here, where we got to meet great people that are no nonsense, basically like literally cowboys. I mean, it doesn't get much more cowboy than out here. That's all I can tell you. I mean, these are some rough.
Than making your living with cows. Yeah.
Yes, these are some rough looking men out here in a good way. And I've been enjoying it living here. Like I said, I would not mind visiting Vegas. We go to Florida every year for vacations and all that, but I just love it here. I love the freedom. And I hope a lot of your listeners do something like this, to decide to make a move instead of saying all the excuses all the time. My job is here or something. A lot of people work from home too. And you might have to get some kind of pay cut because you decided to do this, but your overhead, your rent, your mortgage, hopefully you bought a property, is so much less than it offsets the cost from a big city living. And you just gotta put things into perspective, what really matters to you versus look at pros and cons in this one and then make that decision and go from there. That's what I hope a lot of people will do, because I think unfortunately our country is going in the direction where you're going to need to know people that grow food. You better do it yourself, but if you don't, you better have connections with them, because you cannot rely on those freaks in office. That's just the way I see that.
How many cattle do you run on 40 acres? Are you still 40 acres?
I have 40 acres, but not all is pasture land. So I have about 3 rotational grazings for about 7 or 8 acres. So you're looking at maybe half of it. So I would have like about 15 head. Once I sell 3 or 4 quickly, I get another one that's about 6 or 8 months. Put her on that for about a year to just graze. It's just a little tough sometimes because these cows that are grass fed, it takes time for them to get up to that weight that financially makes sense to you. It takes a lot longer. That's why grass-fed meat is going to be tougher unless you cook it right, because they are working out. Okay, if you're looking at someone who has
They're not sitting at a
big
Barcalounger
belly
flipping through the soap operas
yes,
and eating bonbons.
yes. It's just like all of these things I learned, and it's so interesting to me that I was like, wow, this makes so much sense. So you got a cow that's out there for 2 years grazing, running around. They actually run a lot, believe it or not. They jump, they do all kinds of stuff. They play just like, small puppies when they're a year old or under. They're active, so they have muscle. And when you have muscle, you have more stronger tissue versus the grain-fed, corn-fed cow. You put them in these feedlots. I don't know if you guys ever seen it. They have their heads forward. They can't move, and they feed them, and they bulk up so they can have more meat out. And a lot of times these cows are just in distress. It's not good for the liver and all that. It is, but most people do prefer grain-fed meat because it's got more fat, more marbling. It's easier to make, quicker. You just got to know which way to go. It's your preference, and understand the difference in the meat, and then make your best decision. Are you looking for really healthy, or are you looking for something that's pretty good, but it's nowhere as healthy as, because the cows are supposed to graze. They are made to eat grass. They're not made to eat cupcakes like they feed them sometimes in feedlots or whatever else they feed them to bulk up. They're supposed to eat grass, hay, grass, same thing. That's what that's what horses are supposed to eat, not anything else. And I did not come up with that. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. So so 15 head of cattle on 7 to 8 acres year round.
No, 7 to 8 acres with rotational, so all 3 of them have that much. So about, 20 acres, and it goes with hay. You got to do about 3 or 4 bales of hay per cow, sometimes per month if they're really big. If it's a bull, that goes pretty quickly. So we have a lot of cost too if the weather is bad. So that's another part that you have to consider. One of those bales, it's about $45 to $50, depending on where you go. So if you got, like I said, bad weather, so this is another reason why when people have it in Montana, North Dakota, Indiana, Illinois, where there is a lot of farmland, Utah, you're looking at winter. I mean, Wyoming, you're looking at 6 months of winter. I just don't know how they do it. Honestly, I don't know. So these are the little things that are, I guess, big things for people to put into consideration if they ever look into it. Somewhere down south would be a little bit better. We are right on that, kind of like on the cusp between, are we really down south? We're a little bit more north, so we do have some snow, but it's really, like I said, the winter is pretty nice. I'm not complaining. We really struck it pretty good here, and I hope a lot of other people do as well, instead of looking for these sexy places like Florida, Las Vegas, where you're paying an arm and a leg for 1 acre of land. and you have to deal with all the bureaucracy with HOAs and all that. Over here, nobody cares what you do. I mean, it is just freedom.
I will
And
say this in defense of the Las Vegas area. Just drove back from Las Vegas last week, had a trade show, stopped in Boulder City at a barbecue place and had one of the best piles of beef I've ever wrapped my lips around. I really wish it was not 4.5 hours away from my house. I would be there every week. Phil, they're not paying us any money. Can I promote them?
And then we got to meet up someday over there, I guess.
It's a place called Fox Barbecue in Boulder City. Folks, get the slop bucket. That's what it's called. That's what the plate is called. You will thank me later. It is extraordinary. So
probably,
but it's not good enough for me to want to live in Las Vegas. I assure you.
Probably using local meat, but so yeah, let's talk about the economics of it some, because on your website, you can order, and you're one of the few people, one of the few online, meat distributors, meat sellers who it looks like you're selling kind of a half or a quarter side of beef there. So you can get 200 pounds of beef for, I think the price was somewhere under $14 a pound for that. When you do that,
$13.50, yeah, and
yeah, so $13.50 a pound, and anyone who's shopped in the supermarket recently, you're paying pretty much $10 a pound for the low quality, for much less quality stuff. That's for the ground beef. And then, steaks, I think it's very challenging. I rarely see them under $15 a pound. So here we are, by cutting out a lot of the middlemen is probably a big part of it. You can get, very high quality product at a much lower price.
Yeah, $13.50 that includes, just for those that are not aware, when you buy in bulk like this, which is what most farm to table businesses do, you just got to be sometimes on the waiting list for a while because, like I said, all those moving parts have to come into place. Here, we just got lucky having the processor pretty close by and all the things that come into place. But 200 pounds of meat would fit in a 7 cubic foot freezer, which would feed, I'm not talking about carnivores, full-on carnivores. Obviously, that's going to be more extreme meat eating. But those that are not full carnivore, family of 4, would last a whole year. And that meat is good to go for 1 year, being vacuum sealed in your full up to the brim 7 cubic foot freezer. So family of 4. So just look at like maybe for 2 people when it comes to most people here that listen, eat probably a lot more beef than they do pasta and vegetables. So that's kind of the first part to look at it. And half of that, it's always roughly half is ground beef because half of the cow is ground beef. So if you're buying 100 pounds of ground beef, you're going to get roughly between 40 and 50 pounds of ground beef. Then you're going to have your brisket, you're going to have your ribs, you're going to have your cube brown steaks, you're going to have your other steaks like porters, ribeyes, blah, 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 all of those, shanks. All of those cuts are the other half of the half that you bought. So if you bought 200 pounds, roughly 90 pounds is going to be ground beef, and the rest 110 pounds is going to be between the steaks, brisket, ribs, short ribs, dino ribs, all the other cuts, roasts, chuck roast, arm roast. We're famous out here in Arkansas for arm roast. People haven't really heard much about it. It's delicious, in my opinion. It's got a beautiful marrow bone in the middle. And that's kind of how it works. So that's why you save a little bit of money when you're buying in bulk. But a lot of people have storage issues. They live in the cities, right? So they don't have a room for a 7 cubic foot freezer. So that's why we offer sample pack of 20 pounds, which gives you like 7, 8, 9 pounds, whatever ground beef. You got a little bit of steak, you got a little bit of roasts, and we have those as well, especially for budget friendly. Burger box, 20 pounds. I think on our website, $157 for those. Those are flying literally off the shelves. Just a burger box.
Yeah, I can imagine.
20 pounds of ground beef, that can fit in the corner of your freezer, even if you live in the city. And it's the easiest, as you guys know, meat to make, from your tacos to hamburgers to meatballs. Maybe meatballs would take a little more time, but so many varieties with ground beef. So as much as it's not maybe your favorite steak that you get on the bulk, You get to really experiment from meatloaf to all kinds of stuff with ground beef. And this ground beef, I personally think, is beyond delicious. Like, I haven't had an issue with the ground beef. There was one person that told me they had an issue with, but then she ended up telling me that she put it on the frying pan. It was not even thawed out. She put it when it was still cold. I was like, no, listen, you gotta have that meat completely on the room temperature, and then don't even put it on high, just put it on low and cut it up. Maybe put a little butter over it and go from there, because it's grass-fed, so it's not gonna have all that grease on the bottom, which I know a lot of carnivores do like. I'm just calling it, was it a good fat or bad fat? We don't know. There is not much research, not even from, what's his name? Norwitz. I'm sure you guys heard Norwitz. Yeah. I haven't heard much on this from anyone. What is really the difference in this fat from grass-fed cow versus from grain-fed? As much as it does have fat, and you need some fat, of course, that's the whole point of the anti-establishment narrative, that fat is good for you, protein is good for you. I just don't know. I'm just going to stick with, for me and my family, with what is natural, and I'm going to continue doing so. I'm just going to stick with what I got and go from there.
So the website is Independence Ark, one word, A-R-K, independenceark.com. I went and wandered around and just, my mouth was watering. I need to not be looking at things like that before I've eaten for the day. It looks fantastic.
I got dinner coming up too. I'm sure you guys are ready. Yeah.
Indeed. Yes. Yeah, this has just been a fascinating, entertaining conversation. We're definitely going to have you back on to go even deeper in this, and of course, get updates on how it's going. But love what you've done and what you're doing. And we've said many times that the best food is going to come from your local rancher, your local farmer. Go shake their hand, go figure out what they're doing, and as best you can. But if you don't have that option, ordering from a local rancher who may not be actually local to you, like Marko, is another great way to do it.
Thank you. I just wanted to add, if I can, real quick, for those that do like more fat, when it comes to grass-fed short ribs, dino ribs, brisket, and some roasts like chuck roast, they have a lot of fat, and it's, in my opinion, really good fat. So for those that are really into that, those are the cuts you want to look into when you are ordering grass-fed and finished beef. Some people may say it's grass-fed, but it's really not, and you can just tell by the color. If it's really red and the fat is really white, it's not grass-fed. It might have been grass-fed at some point, but it's not finished. It's not taken to the processor. It's finished on grain, and you have no idea how long. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
That's good to know.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Very good. Besides the website, where else should people find you, Marko?
I'm on Twitter a lot. I post a lot, Independence Ark. I'm sure you guys seen it. I get a little crazy sometimes. I go off the a lot, but I don't care. Like I said, I'm not. I had people that would attack. Why would you say this? Why would you post a picture of Bill Gates laughing? You're not. I don't care. We are not big corporation that we have to follow anyone's rules. We do. If you don't like us, go somewhere else. I don't care. That's my attitude, and that's what I'll leave you with. And thank you again for both of you guys for having me on. I had a great conversation.
It's with both been of you. A blast. Thank you. It's really cool to meet a guy who isn't a generational rancher, who said, you know what? I'm going to do it, and has succeeded. That all by itself will be an inspiration to a lot of folks, and we'll get a lot of crossover.
And I hope it is. I hope it is. People need to take it seriously so they can stay away from the operating tables.
Absolutely. All right, yeah. Phil, as always, I'm so pleasantly surprised by these extraordinary people we get to talk to. This one has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you bringing Marko onto the show, and I'm thrilled that I get to talk to folks like this. I'll remind our listeners that contact information for Marko Babac and Independence Ark will be available on the show notes, so you can click directly through, order some meat from Marko. Show him your support, and I think you'll enjoy it. So for
All
Dr.
right,
Philip
gentlemen.
Ovadia, thank you, Marko. For Dr. Philip
Thank
Ovadia,
you.
this has been the Stay Off My Operating Table podcast, and we will talk to you next time.
Have a great day.
Chances are you wouldn't be listening to this podcast if you didn't need to change your life and get healthier. So take action right now. Book a call with Dr. Ovadia's team. One small step in the right direction is all it takes to get started. Contact us at ifixhearts.com/talk. That's ifixhearts.com/talk.